Everybody makes mistakes. However, not everybody makes mistakes that are quite as public and sometimes evil as these people that we're going to be talking about today. Hi, my name is Ross and I read Reddit stories on the internet for your viewing and listening pleasure. If you're new here, or if this is your second or third video on this channel, I'd greatly appreciate it if you would click the subscribe button. It is one click, it is free, but it also helps out this channel a great deal if you want to see more. As well as that, if you're only interested in audio only kind of content, then you can check out the Spotify link in the description, which will take you to the playlist of these videos. These can be downloaded at home and then either watched or listened to while you're cooking, cleaning, or going to work without using up any of your data. Thanks so much for keeping me company today. Let's go through some of these Reddit stories and let's begin with the first Reddit story of the day. This first one is, am I the a-hole for being upset after my girlfriend called me high maintenance? Girlfriend, 26, and I, 24, have been together for 4 years and we moved together officially 6 months ago. We rented a new and more spacious apartment together, we split rent and most of the expenses according to our wages. We both work. I have a full-time job and she works part-time. I'll answer more questions if needed. I am a terrible cook. I don't like it at all, and every time I try to cook something, it tastes awful. So my girlfriend cooks most of our meals. To be honest, also, I don't really do many of the household chores. It's not that I want my girlfriend to do everything on her own, but I was living with my mom before moving out and she used to do everything. I do other stuff and I do chores when asked. This is a small issue between us, but not as big. Yesterday, I came home from work around 8 p.m. and my girlfriend was cooking for us. We had dinner and then she was washing the dishes. We were chatting while she cleaned and then I went to hug her while she was putting everything in place, the seasonings and that kind of stuff. By this time, it was like an hour later. I was trying to hug her and kiss her, but she kept saying, "Leave me alone a sec," and moving away. She wasn't angry, she was just busy. Then, I let her go and I told her something like, "Why are you so cold?" in a whiny voice. I was trying to be funny, but then she snapped, "Why are you so high maintenance?" I was kind of shocked by her tone. I thought she was joking and I said, "Are you for real?" She said, "Yeah, I love you, but you're high maintenance. Sometimes I just can't with you." Then I got upset and told her that I'll leave her alone and left to her bedroom. Around maybe 15 minutes or so later, she comes in and was trying to talk to me. But I was kind of ignoring her and just giving her short answers because I didn't want to talk to her. She asked me what was going on and I told her that we were just joking around until she started saying stuff that hurt. She told me that I never help, or if I do, she has to tell me what to do. She says that she feels like she's my mom sometimes. We argued and now we're in a tight spot. Now, this is a difficult one because I feel like a lot of people are probably going to be eviscerating the guy for this one. And I think there's a large onus on the guy to do as much as he can and do more. I think this is also a pretty common thing for men. I, on many occasions, have been the OP in real life. I stand awkwardly in the wrong place. She knows exactly what she's doing. She's on a mission. I am in the way. And then she just gets like a little bit annoyed at me. Why? Because I'm being annoying and trying to talk to her while she's doing something. I can't imagine how annoying I must be in that situation. And I don't think that our OP has any idea how annoying he is being by just kind of standing around and doing nothing. I've done it many times. A small gesture goes a humongous amount of the way though. What I will say is though, I think a lot of people are probably eviscerating the OP in this as well, but to be honest with you, as far as the cooking is concerned and stuff like that, it's a little bit awkward and I feel like maybe they're giving him too much of a hard time. He came back from work and he got home at around 8 p.m. and his girlfriend was already cooking for them. Obviously they want to eat together. Obviously they want to share their dinner. They're only going to cook one meal. So if he's coming home at 8 p.m. and he's supposed to be cooking the food, there's a chance that that food is not going to be finished until, like, if he's home at 8, half 8 or like 9 p.m. when it's being plated, depending on what they're cooking, right? Unless they're having something like super duper simple that's only like 10-15 minutes. That is not to say that he should allow her to be doing everything. I think that him offering to cook like a couple times a week is a fantastic start, and you need to start small. But also, it is a weird one. They obviously both pay their way in their relationship as well, but it depends on their wages. Now, I don't know how much either of them are making, but OP says that he's working full-time and his girlfriend is working part-time, which would realistically give her more time at home to potentially do slightly more chores. So I don't think it's about like she should be doing more chores because she works part-time and he works full-time, but I think you need to like bring it into like a more reasonable equilibrium where, okay, maybe she's not pulling in as much money, but she's doing all the chores and he's making the majority of the money and not doing any chores. But we need to just kind of realign that ever so slightly. I think that's like the thing about it. I don't think that just because you work part-time, you should be expected to do absolutely all of the housework, because some people like doing it. But for me, it is a bit of a laborious task, and I can literally only do it when I have a YouTube video on in my ears or a podcast or something. But once again, as is always the case with situations like this, the solution, say it with me, is communication. Have that conversation. The lashing out is just something that happens. You've been living together for 6 months. You're still pretty much getting used to what it's actually like to live with each other. Sure, you probably spent a lot of time at each other's apartments before this, but that is nothing compared to actually sharing a roof under somebody's house. Because if you're going to your girlfriend's apartment, what she says goes. If she comes over to yours, it's your home. You get to see how it is. All of a sudden, the boundaries have been broken down and you now actually have to make communal decisions. It has to be democratic. There has to be a vote. There has to be councils, vetoes, compromises. It's an adjustment period. The lashing out is nothing to be worried about. She got annoyed. She made a comment. I think they're going to be fine, provided he actually maybe makes a gesture and tries to build some healthy habits like cleaning up after yourself. I think there's a lot to worry about the fact of his attitude where he says that he's used to his mother doing everything. That's something that you should be talking to a therapist about, though. I think your girlfriend is not your mother, and if you view it that way, I think if he hadn't made the comment about his mother, I think a lot of people would probably, I wouldn't say agree with him, but at least probably be more empathetic. Regardless, I hope he sorts out his mommy issues, and I hope that he learns how to clean a plate every once in a while. Let's move on to the next Reddit story of the day. The next Reddit story on our list for today is, am I the a-hole for forcing my roommate to miss her finals exam that she spent 2 years studying for? Context. I live with a roommate and her 3-year-old child. Roommate is a 4th year medical student and is really struggling, having to balance the child, intense study workload, chores and part-time jobs to afford rent, babysitter and necessities. On the day of the biggest exam of her entire degree, her babysitter cancelled last minute. She was absolutely frantic and hysterically calling every one of her contacts to help. Of course, she asked me. She asked me before to babysit, and I always give a stern no. It's not the time that I need to spend, since I'm perfectly fine with swapping around chores, but the principle that I must be responsible for the child for the duration. For example, if the child hurts himself, no matter how badly, it would be on me. And I refuse to take that responsibility for something like that, so I always refuse to babysit. 14-year-old girls babysit, okay? How old are you? She begged and begged me, and since the journey to her exam centre is almost 2 hours and she needed to go now, she just said, I don't effing care, and left the house. Frankly, I found this quite disrespectful, as it is trying to push me to babysit without my consent. Right after she left, I grabbed my coat and also left. She was starting her car, and then she saw me and asked what I was doing. I told her that I was going to go watch a movie. I lied. I just refused to babysit without consent. Her eyes dropped and I could see the tears forming as she started begging me more to help her. I still explained the same thing, that it's not the time or the effort, but the responsibility. She told me that she would sign a waiver that states I am 100% not responsible no matter what happens. I am not an expert in law and not sure if such a waiver is even legally enforceable. Even so, it still carries the responsibility risk, so I stand my ground. Eventually, she became quiet and started sobbing whilst hitting herself. I, as respectfully as I can, ask if there's anything I can help with that does not involve babysitting the child. She told me to F off. So I did, and actually went to watch a movie. It's been a few weeks and she still absolutely refuses to communicate with me. She does still do her share of the chores, and we are pretty separate beforehand, so it wasn't really that much of a difference in her day-to-day life. I do feel pretty bad, since I've seen for the past 2 years we've lived together that she has almost no free time, and always sleeps later than me and wakes up earlier than me to cram in a little bit of extra study. I know the exam meant a lot to her, and missing the exam might jeopardize her entire degree of 4 years. I didn't think that it would be appropriate for me to ask. It sucks that her efforts for the last 2 years have gone down the drain, but that's not an excuse to cross my bottom line. Trying not to immediately explode into a ball of flames that hopefully consumes this man. Oh, okay. I pray, and I'm gonna need people in the comment section as well to hopefully let me know that there is a number or someone that this woman can speak to. and explain the extenuating circumstances that caused her to miss this exam and allow her to take it at a later date or something that has not completely torpedoed her chances of finishing med school. I sincerely hope that her entire future, her entire child's future is not in the hands of this freak. Listen, I understand that there is some degree of responsibility of looking after a 3-year-old child, but to be honest with you, I'm not gonna lie, that responsibility is probably, if it's just for like 6 hours, putting on any Disney movie, and the only thing you really have to do is get extra water, get some snacks like some apple sticks, and then maybe switching the movie. Okay, you watched Cars? Well, you're gonna love this one. It's called Cars 2. But let's be honest with ourselves. As I said, teenage girls babysit toddlers, okay? You're probably a man in your mid-20s. Do you think that you are less capable than a 13-year-old teenage girl? I would probably say that you're more capable, you're more responsible. You can do this, okay? It would be changing someone's life. They're begging and crying and pleading for you to just take over a little bit of extra responsibility for half a day. Frankly, I have no idea what I would do if I was in this mother's situation. I think the icing on the cake of this whole thing is that you refuse to do someone a massive solid that really isn't actually going to take up that much time and energy of your life, and they would be like eternally grateful to you. But when you go out and approach her in her car and she's freaking out because you've left her child in the apartment or whatever alone, you ask her as respectfully as you can if there's anything that you can do for her that does not include childcare. Really rubbing the salt into the wound there. That's not just the salt in the wound, man. That's like the lemon. You're grinding pepper on there. Absolutely horrible guy. Medical school already seems like such a pressure cooker of things that are ready to explode at any moment. Like the sheer amount of time that you have to spend on the job studying the exams, and even then when you get out it seems like such a competitive environment to be in. Everything is about stats and being the top of your class, and every single person is fighting tooth and nail to claw their way over your body. I'm scared that this woman killed this guy. I don't know what I would do, but I mean, if she did, you could probably understand where she's coming from, I guess. That's a horrible thing to say. Having a dig into the comments here, there's one that like really made a lot of sense, and I thought that I would read it out for you as well. It says, "It disturbs me the way people misuse the concept of boundaries and consent. No means no isn't a universal pass to lead a selfish, amoral, isolationist existence. You don't get to use it as a legal defense when you don't feel like complying with the law, and you certainly don't get to use it as a moral defense in an emergency when an innocent person desperately needs help. You're the only person who can help. Helping would cost you nothing, and you didn't have that to spare. But instead you decide to sit back and watch them suffer for your own amusement." It's so true. People that have this ridiculous notion of like certain, I guess, societal boundaries and stuff like that, for instance, in this particular case, never ever wanting to look after a child and being so unflinching and unmalleable, it makes me just ill and sick to my stomach. All it signals to me is that you are the least reliable person that I could ever hope to be in my social circle if it came to an emergency. Like, if I have a kid, I want all of my close friends to be capable of babysitting. Not because I plan on actually calling that favor in at any point, but in the case of an emergency, I need to know that my closest friends are capable of looking after my child if, for instance, I had to be somewhere else in a split second, you know? Now, obviously this is a roommate, but still, you've presumably like worked up some kind of relationship over the number of years that you've lived together. She needs to look for another apartment, man. There's 0% chance. In the case of stuff like this, I would never be friends with anybody that has a strange, unstoppable boundary like that. Super selfish. Good luck being on your own, buddy. I sincerely hope that that one was able to reschedule her exam, but for now, let's move on to the next Reddit story of the day. This next one is, "Am I the a-hole for telling members of my cooking class not to eat bad food?" Throwaway account. I, 46 male, am taking a cooking class. It's an adult education class for beginner cooks and focuses on knife skills and basic cooking principles. I've been cooking my whole life and came from a family that cooked a lot, and I've never learned the proper gourmet techniques. Most of the people in my class only cook occasionally. There is one young woman in her 20s who says she barely cooks at all. During the first class, we were asked to state our skill level and what we hoped to get out of the class. And she said, "My family never cooked, and I always thought cooking was a stressful activity, and I want to make it a fun activity." Great, but that's not what everyone else is here for. The first day, I noticed that this girl had the burner on way too low for her soup. I turned it up for her and explained that food won't cook unless it's hot. She didn't seem to know. I also brought over all of her ingredients so that she wouldn't have to run around panicking when it came time to blend in her herbs. She thanked me, but moved her ingredients further down the table away from me. I thought it was rude, but didn't dwell on it. At the next class, she was supposed to be melting chocolate, which is one of the easiest things to do. I noticed that her chocolate was starting to melt in the pot, but that she was getting a drink from her water bottle. I immediately turned her burner down and called her over, just to explain how food sometimes needs to be watched and things can happen very quickly. Again, she was moody and rude. Finally, at our third class, she was actually one of the students put in charge of the entree. Up until now, she had been making appetizers and desserts, which people in the class can choose either to eat or ignore, but it's expected that everyone will at least try the entree. I was, of course, really concerned for my classmates. I didn't want anyone to get sick or to eat something disgusting. While we were cooking/serving ourselves the different courses, I hovered around the entree and tried to make casual comments like, "That doesn't look completely fresh to me," and asked her what help she needed. The main course was fish, and I didn't think that an inexperienced cook like her could safely serve the dish to everyone else. So, before eating, at the end of each class, the instructor asked us what we learned from each day. I was already frustrated from dealing with this girl that could barely cook at all, so I answered, "Honestly, don't trust someone who can't even boil soup to bake a salmon." Most people chuckled, but after, the girl got upset. Some folks came up to me afterwards and said that I should have given her food a chance. I disagree, because I think people can actually get sick from eating bad cooking, and this girl shouldn't have agreed to cook for everyone if she was this poorly skilled. Alright, Gordon Ramsay, let's break it down. You're not the instructor at this class, okay? You're a 46-year-old guy dumpstering this 20-year-old woman at a cooking class you do not even teach. Why don't you leave the teaching and the guidance and the telling the woman that her burner is up too high or up too low or whatever to the person that's paid to teach this class? If you want to learn gourmet techniques and you want to learn proper artisanal culinary magic that you can whip out at home, find another class that is specifically catered towards advanced chefs. This woman is here because she very specifically said that she does not like cooking and she wants to make it a fun activity. And by Jove, Governor, what have you done? You have sucked every single gram of fun out of this experience for her, where she can make it very social and chat to people, and it becomes more like a social experience that doesn't seem as much like a chore. You've micromanaged her, you've like mansplained like thermodynamics to her, I guess. Oh, did you know that food doesn't cook unless it's hot enough to cook? Why, thank you, Einstein. How very astute an observation of you. Yeah, she's gonna make mistakes. Her food's probably not gonna be that good. That's fine. But like, she's also there to learn. But I say this to any of my friends looking to start something who are a little bit shaky when it comes to the beginning of a hobby or a skill that they're trying to learn. Maybe they're trying to learn guitar and they're saying that they suck at guitar, right? Okay? Guess what? You have to suck a lot until you get better. That's just the way it is. You have to be a terrible cook and a terrible chef before you can actually make good stuff. Do we think that Gordon Ramsay was fired out of the womb, straight into a kitchen apron and cooked up a perfect beef Wellington? No, I do not think that he did. I think that he was probably a very bad chef, and then he became a serviceable chef, then probably adequate, and then experienced, almost good. And that was over the course of many years of his life under extreme pressure. This woman is not, and is not trying to be, Gordon Ramsay. She just wants to make cooking a little bit more fun at home. Maybe spend a little bit less money on DoorDashes being sent to the house every single night. And you, gatekeeping son of a gun, have absolutely obliterated any chance of her finding any love in cooking whatsoever. I'm gonna be honest, man. It takes a big person when prompted with, did you know that your soup will cook if you heat it up enough, to not whip that entire pot of soup into his face and ask him if that is hot enough to cook. She's a bigger person than me. That being said though, what is she meant to do? She's being berated and demeaned and condescended to by somebody twice her age in a class, man. You're actually a bully. You're like a school bully. I have no idea what this poor woman did to make herself a target in your eyes. Presumably, you thought you were being kind and you didn't think that she was grateful enough that her savior came to the rescue to put the burner up like 2 notches so that it was like actually simmering or cooking or whatever. You thought she was rude when she moved ingredients further away from you, maybe not considering the fact that she was doing that because she wanted the space to work with. Maybe she has a preference of where she actually wants to work on the counter and you put all the ingredients there. But no, you had to stand around with your arms crossed talking about, I don't know if that salmon's fresh. We're not eating at a Michelin star restaurant, bro. It's a cooking class at the YMCA, man. Grow up. I'm gonna lose my mind, man. This guy's talking about how his family are all experienced chefs and they all cook a lot of the time. If his cousin isn't like Guy Fieri or something, he's got absolutely no reason to be treating people this way. And even then, if he actually had the skills to back up how good he thinks he is, I think he would probably show a little bit more humility and a little bit more empathy towards somebody. If you have such a love of cooking, you should want to share that love of your hobby with other people, not pounding it into the dirt like a gatekeeping elitist. Put him in the pot, boil him, serve him as an entree. I don't care. Let's move on to the next Reddit story of the day before I explode. We've got another food-related one today. Bit of a food theme going on in this episode. This one is, am I the a-hole for throwing away food I know my girlfriend wanted? I, 24 male, live with my 23-year-old girlfriend and recently threw away the leftovers of a meal I cooked because she said she wanted to try some. For a bit of background, when we moved in together, we agreed that we would each only cook for ourselves and use our own dishes. My idea. The issue is sometimes she will now ask if she can have a bite of the food I am cooking just to try it, or wants to eat some of the leftovers I cook and then she offers to cook for both of us the next night. She now claims that it's a ridiculous rule to have and that I should grow out of the role by now. On to the incident. I had made a stir fry and was finishing putting the leftovers in a container when she blatantly told me to just leave it out so she can have some. I, of course, said no and that I don't want her to eat what I cook and put it in the container and into the fridge and started to leave the kitchen. I went to the living room to grab my phone before going back to the kitchen to grab a drink when I saw my girlfriend pulling my food out of the fridge and taking the lid off. I went over to the counter and grabbed the container and dumped the food in the trash to prevent her from eating it. She stayed silent the whole time until finally calling me an a-hole and storming off. I don't really think I am the a-hole as we agreed to this arrangement before moving in. I knew it might be a problem. But some friends said it's time to move on from my weird obsession and just share food already. Am I the a-hole? A few important things might be. Thank goodness, because we definitely need a bit more context on this. We don't share any food, even spices, and do not share any food costs. I have never once wanted to eat the food that she makes or used her cooking ingredients. I always let her go first when cooking in the kitchen. I don't cook for friends or family either. Who in their right mind comes up with a rule that is like this? Unless you're like ARFID or something, you're severely averse to specific food, or I don't know what's going on. I can't imagine any reasonable adult thinking that this is a good idea. Economically, financially, time-wise, you're just doubling the amount of time in the kitchen, and also the ritual of eating together is just like a natural human bonding thing where you get to spend a little bit of time together and kind of mull over the day. What is your problem? What is the problem with this? I can't imagine what kind of person would suggest such a thing to begin with. I can't imagine how much this woman loves him to agree to it. And even then, similar to our previous story where this guy had a boundary that was just so unflinchingly unmovable, his girlfriend would want to try his cooking, which should be a compliment, realistically. If your girlfriend loves your cooking and wants to have your cooking, that should be something that, like, puffs up your big ego. Ripping it out of her hands and dumping it in the trash is like just a complete waste of food. It's just a slap in the face to your girlfriend as well. It's just completely weird, man. Looking at the comments as well, somebody says, to be honest, I didn't know we don't even share spices crazy was a level of crazy that existed. I'm somehow impressed. Other people were also saying that the original poster of this gave a little bit more clarification on the post, and they don't even share the same bedroom. Now, it depends on the couple. Some couples don't share bedrooms and they're completely fine with it. To be honest with you, from what I'm reading about what the original poster is saying, they don't share food, they don't share a bedroom. He's willing to be that spiteful regarding his silly made-up rule that his girlfriend probably only really agreed to because it would quieten him down. I don't think that that's particularly much of a relationship if there's much of the relationship left. Some people prefer to be in separate rooms. Some people do eat separately. People can make their own meals if that's their preference. If you both agree to it and you're both into that idea, that's totally fine. Live your life. Live the way you want to live. However, come on, if he was to slap the food out of your hand and throw it in the trash in front of you because you dared to have some of his leftovers, then that's not a relationship that you want to be in. That is just completely absurd. If there was food intolerances or allergies, okay, I could understand them needing to make their own food. But once again, this is just a guy with a weird boundary that is completely unwilling to change it for anyone around him, even the ones that he allegedly loves the most in this world. By the way, this is Charlie. This is Casper, if you haven't already met these two before. That being said though, let's move on to the next Reddit story of the day. This next one on the list is, am I the a-hole for punishing my granddaughter? I am a single mom of 4, who are 27 male, 21 male, 18 male, and 16 female. Their dad passed away when the youngest was 1, and raising them all alone has been very difficult. The 3 youngest still live with me and they're all either in high school or college. When my oldest was 18, he had a child with his girlfriend. His girlfriend wanted to give her up for adoption, but my son convinced her not to do it and let him raise the child instead. I told him I have enough kids already. I'm not raising another one because really, who is going to end up taking care of the child when he is going to college? I told him to either let his girlfriend give up the baby or move out of my home because I'm not going to help him at all. I have enough kids already. He chose to keep the baby and move out. I didn't hear from him for years after that, but he kept in touch with the rest of my children and they told me that he is very upset. A few days ago, my youngest son came and wanted to talk to me. He said that my oldest is going through a hard time and needs a place to stay and asked if he can invite him to stay with us for some time. I decided to let him stay with us as he seemed to be out of options. They moved in with us 2 days ago and my son and I have been talking and trying to fix things. However, I'm very bothered by his daughter's behaviour. Yesterday, she was sitting in the living room and playing with her phone. I tried to start a conversation with her by asking her how old she is. I already know how old she is, obviously. I was just trying to talk to her. She didn't answer. I asked again. No answer. After the 3rd time, my daughter took out the kid's AirPods and told her I'm talking to her. I repeated my question and she rolled her eyes and said that I could have asked someone else because everyone here knows her age. I told her that I was trying to talk to her and she said, I know, I was trying not to. I told her that this is no way to talk to your grandmother and she rolled her eyes again. This is when I decided I've had enough. I told her to go to her room and not get out until she apologizes. She decided not to apologize and missed dinner. When my son came home, he went to his room and then angrily came back and asked us why his daughter was not given anything to eat. I told him the story, but he kept yelling at me, saying that I have no right to punish his child like that. He kept calling me an a-hole and other names. I tried to calm him down, but he wouldn't stop yelling and said that they'll move out in the morning. I think he was overreacting, but all my children are on his side, so I wonder if I was the a-hole in this situation. Now listen, I think that the way that the daughter spoke to her grandmother, it wasn't ideal. She was obviously like rude to her grandmother. That being said though, this is a 9-year-old girl, probably has had a bit of information passed on to her about the way that her grandmother treated her mum and dad, so presumably does not favour her particularly well. Doesn't want to be there any more than her grandmother wants her there, but they're obviously falling on hard times at that point in their lives and had to stay with the original poster. That being said though, asking a 9-year-old or starting a conversation with a 9-year-old with how old are you is how you would start a conversation with a 2-year-old. That's a toddler question to ask. You've raised multiple kids. Surely you know at this point that they're 9 years old. They're actually pretty smart. They can hold entire conversations on their own. They can even count to 10 and they know the alphabet. You don't have to be super condescending to a 9-year-old. But certainly, if you're going to be condescending to a 9-year-old, you can do a better job than, how old are you? Where is that conversation destined to go? She tells you, I'm 9 years old. Okay, and now what? What are you going to say next? I gotta appreciate, right? It must be awkward for the grandmother. It was an awkward question to ask, sure, but this is, I think, like one of the first times that she's actually met her granddaughter, because they went no contact for a long time. They went no contact for 8 or 9 years, and this is like probably the first or second time maybe that she's ever actually met her granddaughter, and this granddaughter is already like a little person that is just fully kind of formed. But also this little person has no emotional attachment to you in any way, shape or form. And your son does have a point. It's not really your responsibility to punish his child, especially when you wanted absolutely nothing to do with his child in the first place. You're the one that said, I'm not looking after this child, get out. Guess what? He did look after the child. Him and the mother of the child both looked after the kid for the last 9 years, and they seem to have done a serviceable job. And yeah, it is under your roof, so I can understand you don't want to be spoken to that way when you are doing a nice thing by letting them stay here. But once again, you don't have any right. You weren't part of this kid's life. You don't get to be judge and jury on a kid that you have absolutely nothing to do with. What you should do, go and speak to your son, tell him what happened, and I'm certain that he will adequately punish the daughter or speak to her and let her know that she can't talk to you that way. He's probably extremely grateful that despite the fact that you two haven't spoken in a long time, that you are allowing him into your home, even if you maybe had to have your arm twisted by one of your kids. Listen, it's a tough one. I can kind of see both sides of the stories, right? Your house, your rules. But there's also, on the other hand, a better way to deal with this, because I think you didn't have anything to do with this kid's life up to this point. It would kind of be like just punishing a random person's child for no reason. That would be extremely weird. You have about as much of a relationship with this child as a random person on the street's child, right? Not your job. It's not your post. However, you are correct. You deserve more respect shown to you when you are hosting people and taking them in, helping them out in a stressful situation. So there is props to that. You didn't have to take them in. You didn't want anything to do with that kid, and you put that aside because your son, your granddaughter, and the mother of your granddaughter were in a financial bind. So listen, props to that. However, you gotta learn how to speak to a 9-year-old, because it's not working at all. And looking into the comment section as well, this is something that I glossed over, which I'm super sorry for. There's a lot of information to take in, and I didn't even think about this at the time, but now that I've gone into the comment section, it has illuminated a little bit more to me. This kid does not know you. She's in an uncomfortable situation surrounded by basically strangers, and rather than meeting her where she is, you've decided that you should punish her for that. Also, withholding food should never be a punishment, and your son rightfully was upset by this. You do not have the right to punish a child that isn't yours without the consent and understanding of the parent. And I suspect that you've put another nail in the coffin for your relationship with your son. So yeah, withholding food. The daughter didn't have dinner that night, which is messed up, completely messed up. They should not be going to bed hungry ever. That's just not the way that it should be. That's completely wrong. To be honest with you, I'm surprised that nobody else stepped in to feed this girl. Maybe she did. Maybe her dad came and gave her food, or her mum came and gave her food. I don't know what the full situation is, but there's more. She knows her aunts and uncles, and I doubt that she was uncomfortable when they were all fawning over her. She only missed one meal, and she already had a big lunch. They live in my home, so I think that gives me some kind of right. Wrong, wrong, and wrong on every single point. She knows her aunts and uncles. That's the operative word here. She knows them. She already knows her aunts and uncles. So it's fine if they're fawning over her and talking to her, because they're not complete strangers to her. You, on the other hand, are a stranger. She has still got every right to be uncomfortable anyway. Even if she knows her aunts and uncles, maybe she just doesn't want that much attention. She only missed one meal and she already had a big lunch. Not an excuse. Missing one meal is one more meal than should be missed by a child. They live in my home, so I think that gives me some kind of right. Entitlement? Incorrect. You can explain this to your children, but your children's children, if you have absolutely nothing to do with their entire life, you got no right. You absolutely have no right in that one. I'm her grandmother, the one who is giving them everything for free. I wasn't asking her to do anything hard, just be a little bit polite. I think that if you ended it there, is a fair enough statement does seem like you're maybe hanging it over their heads a little bit, but I think that it's fair enough that you expect to be treated with some degree of respect when people are living in your house for free. That is fair enough. However, is it too much to ask from kids these days? They're kids. They're silly little creatures. That is no excuse to punish them by starvation. She could have gotten food by apologizing. No, food should not be a weapon. It's a human right, okay? You are literally like probably breaking the Geneva Convention by doing something like this, man. Like, are you stupid? What are you doing? I didn't abandon them. I just didn't want them in my home. My son was the one who decided to cut all contact with me. I wanted to be a part of her life. You kind of did. They needed help and you didn't give it to them, I suppose, at the time. Obviously, things have changed, and 9 years later, you were feeling a little bit more hospitable, a little bit more gracious, and you did offer your home up to them, which is a nice thing to do. Do not get me wrong, okay? We might be lambasting this woman a little bit, but I still think that what she did by offering an olive branch to her son, her stepdaughter, and her grandchild was a kind thing to do and the right thing to do. It was obviously 9 years too late, probably, but I have to appreciate as well that she expected to be doing absolutely all of the work and all of the child rearing, which after 4 kids, one of which was completely on her own because her husband died when her youngest son was 1 year old, and the rest of them were all a large majority or mostly. Yeah, okay. I can sympathize that you're a bit tired. That being said though, seems like your son did a fine job. If you'd trusted him a little bit more, so much of this disaster could have been avoided from the start. Because now, all that you've done is completely shatter the relationship with your son, and right when you're about to pick up the pieces of it, you decide to use food as a weapon and drop another bombshell on not just the relationship with your stepdaughter and your son, but now also your granddaughter is probably going to be extremely negative towards you. But what do you think of this story and all the stories that we've spoken about today? I very regularly miss the mark because I am certainly no arbiter of good morals and good reasoning. I'm just a silly little guy from Scotland. The best thing about these stories and the best thing about these videos is we get to discuss all of our different worldviews and all of our different perspectives, because there's 7 or 8 billion different perspectives on this wonderful planet. Let me know down below what you're thinking. But regardless, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Thank you for keeping me company, and I am blessed to be keeping you company as well. If you're new here, or if this is your second or third video and you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, I would greatly appreciate it if you would consider clicking the subscribe button. It's just one click and it's also free, but it helps me out a great deal in this wide, wacky YouTube landscape. As well as that, if you're already a subscriber and you're interested in an audio-only experience, then the Spotify link will be in the description. You can download it at home on Wi-Fi and then listen to it instead of watching it while you're driving to work or cleaning, or if you work from home. Regardless, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you all next time.